You're listening to the Multiverse Fan Cast, proud member of the Misfit Faction Media Network.
All right then, on with the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Multiverse Fan Cast. If you guys are listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere you get your podcast. You can also find more content on our website, themisfitfaction.com. There you find links to not only this show, but also some of our other shows. Like if you want more Paul and Rob, we just did an episode together of MF Uncensored this past week. You can also find our other shows, Cinematic Adventures. You can find links to Rob's reviews, my 4 articles that I've ever done, and our Misfit Faction store where we have brand new merchandise every once in a while.
Merchandising.
Where the real money from the podcast comes from. But as always, I'm one of your hosts, Paul. With me in the studio is Rob. Rob, how are you today?
Oh, you talking to me? I don't see anyone else here. You must be talking to me.
Well, they can't see us, so I have to introduce you.
Oh, hi, everybody. Yeah, it's just us in the studio today.
Weird, right?
I know.
Let's all take a moment of silence for Ronnie, who chose to go to a bachelor party this weekend.
Just weird.
Yeah. He was supposed to give me notes about his thoughts on the show, did not do that, so make sure you call him out immediately.
We know his general feelings, so we'll bring it up, but that's about it.
That's pretty much it. But we have a lot to unpack. We're finally talking about Moon Knight this episode.
Yeah.
I think we were supposed to talk about Moon Knight. No, I think we're on time.
No, we're 1 week behind.
We're 1 week behind?
Yeah, because we were supposed to talk about Moon Knight last week, and last week we talked about Doctor Strange.
Oh, yeah, that's right. My fault. My bad.
You had to go and be contagious.
Yeah, me and producer Melanie. But so we are excited to talk about Moon Knight. It has been an interesting experiment from Marvel, and it's an indication of where we're going to be going. We're going to talk a lot about Disney Plus as a whole and some of our qualms and our excitements. It's funny because on Cinematic Adventures, we're getting ready for Obi-Wan and we're doing Star Wars month, and we're feeling a little bit of trepidation because of it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
Like good or bad?
Nah. So
I wish you could see the face he just made.
We'll talk about Disney Plus because obviously Star Wars has become very Marvel in itself with Disney Plus. So we're gonna have we're gonna start off our episode after news with a discussion about Disney Plus and kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly about it. But before we get started with Moon Knight, we do have a ton of news. So I'm gonna throw it over to Rob for news.
All right. So first of all, we have. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness dropped in its second weekend 67%. That is
one of the biggest drops.
Yeah, that is a big drop. And I think it's safe to say that it is very divisive, this film. I will say it's not as unpopular as Eternals. It still has, I believe, 74% on Rotten Tomatoes. But see, the thing is this, that oftentimes when people come out of movie theaters, they do cinema score ratings, and they ask people 2 questions. Number 1, what would you rate this on, like a report card? And traditionally, most Marvel stuff comes out in the A range. This one came out at a B+, which means it's significantly lower than a lot of the others. The other question is, would you consider watching this film again? And most Marvel movies come in over 40%. Eternals came in at like 22%.
Still have not watched it.
Rewatched it?
I've still not watched it. It's also, I think, for like a movie like Eternals, you also have to factor in the length. It is a long movie. And I'll be honest, even like Avengers Endgame, I could watch the last 25 minutes of that over and over again. That ending battle scene is fantastic.
Pete Davidson says, I need a short-ass movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Eternals is just a slog sometimes.
Eternals would have been better as a Disney Plus series.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
But Doctor Strange came out with something like 30% of the people said they would rewatch it, which is significantly lower than most Marvel stuff. Now, the problem is that the movie is still making a lot of money, but I believe it's only because it has like zero competition to it. There is no major releases because people have been just clearing the way on the schedules usually when a Marvel movie comes out, because Marvel movies traditionally have like about 3 weeks worth of legs to it. And this one, last weekend had no competition. This weekend has no competition. Next week has Top Gun Maverick,
which I think is going to do well.
Oh, very well.
It's
sitting at, I think, 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
The reviews have been great for it. People have been waiting for it, and they say you have to see it in a theater.
I was never a Top Gun fan, even back in the 80s when it came out, which I was alive. I was 12 years old when it came out. And it was good. It was fine. But I got to say, even with this film, I'm excited to see it just from the word of mouth that's coming around.
Yeah, which normally with sequels that take so long to make, 20 plus years especially, we really kind of go towards them with a little bit of hesitation. Like you have like your Dumb and Dumber 2, which if you liked Dumb and Dumber, you would enjoy Dumb and Dumber 2, but it was also way too long.
Or even like Mary Poppins Returns, which was
Yeah.
like 40 years afterwards.
Which is, it's still, from what I was told, was actually a decent movie.
Yeah.
But again, like nobody's like kicking down the door like, I need to see.
I know.
Sequels usually, if they don't happen within 5 years of the original, they're automatically slowly getting out of the consciousness of the public.
Well, hence why I'm a little worried, happy, but worried about the Spinal Tap sequel that
Oh,
they
I thought you were going to say
announced.
Avatar.
Oh,
You-
I don't know how to feel about that one because I just saw that like the Avatar preview was viewed something like 144 million times. So there's clearly a lot of people that are interested.
Which is weird because I liked Avatar. I enjoyed it. And I've watched it since, but that is a movie you need to see in the best theater you possibly can because that's how it was designed. But also, it's Dances with Wolves with Blue.
It totally
with
is.
There's
think-
nothing new story wise about it.
I think it's less a movie and more a theme park ride.
Right.
And I say that with all seriousness that, I think when that does come out, it'll be about the experience, not about the actual
Absolutely,
film.
yeah.
So the next one is one I am so excited to talk about news-wise. Apparently, Zack Snyder's fan-voted Oscar win may have been rigged by bots. 2 reports revealed that, quote, thousands of fake votes were cast for the zombie thriller Army of the Dead for the hashtag Oscars fan favorite and Snyder's cut of the Justice League for the Oscars cheer moment.
Which I wouldn't be surprised, in all honesty. And I won't ever blame Zack Snyder for it. The Zack Snyder fandom is a very interesting one. It's very passionate. It's very
And apparently
vocal,
passionate to the point of cheating.
passionate to the point of cheating. But in all honesty, that's social media.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, the
I know.
second you do the voting with that, you're going to do. And I'm sure other movies, other things have done it too.
Oh, sure.
Bots have been around forever. Like I could go on Facebook right now. I'm in a bunch of podcast groups, and I can literally post, I want to promote my podcast, and I will get hundreds of message requests.
Oh yeah, I for my blogs that I write online, my subscribers, there's a good good chunk of them that are bots.
Oh yeah.
So and I know it's fine.
Even like regular social media, like my Snapchat, my Twitter. Every once in a while, I'll get like a friend request. I'm like, who the hell is this? And it's you accept it, and then you get like the generic message like, find me in your area. I'm like, I don't even know you, and I'm married in that order.
Next bit we have is that The Boys Season 3 trailer came out with lots of Soldier Boy stuff to it.
We are very. This is like the Jensen Ackles renaissance.
Yeah.
He's got promoted to a series regular on a show, Big Sky, I think it's called.
Oh, I didn't know that
Yeah,
one.
he just made his debut on that. They just released the Winchesters trailer.
That is my next bit of news, yes.
Oh, let's talk about it. It looks terrible.
Does it really?
Yeah. Did you see
I
it?
did see it. Now, I know you're a bigger Supernatural fan. I came late to the party for Supernatural.
And we're rewatching it too with my
yeah.
wife. So
but all right, I have to say the parts with Jensen Ackles well, first of all, it's called The Winchesters, and they released an official trailer. I have to say the trailer looks like it's only the first episode. Like it didn't
Very
look like
piloty.
very piloty. So it's better than I thought it was going to be. Like it looks like something I'll actually watch. I have to say, of all the possible Supernatural spin-offs, it's the best. It's one that's got the best shot.
yeah. So we did a 2-part episode on Supernatural right when we came back after our very long hiatus. I think Ronnie and I did it because I know you hadn't even started watching it. And we talked about Supernatural has been trying to do spinoffs for years. It has been their most successful show, 15 seasons for a reason.
Bloodlines, was that one?
Bloodlines was the first one that they tried, and it was god awful.
Yeah, it was.
And then they wanted to do Wayward Sisters or Wayward Daughters, something like that, where it was Jody and Donna and the girls as like a hunting team. And you can watch the episode where they were trying to backdoor pilot it, and it's so different from the rest.
Doesn't feel right.
Claire's narrating, because for some reason the CW loves narration. They will constantly do shows where characters are narrating very just I'm Claire and I'm not your normal girl. Like that's
I'm
like
Barry
their thing.
Allen and I'm the fastest man alive.
Luckily they stopped doing that for all 2 Arrowverse shows they have now. But so I watched the trailer and I was like, this is completely against the continuity of the show. For all of our Supernatural fans, the idea is that John Winchester, the patriarch of Sam and Dean, had no idea about monsters or hunting or demons until his wife died. And in this, they're like, oh, that's a demon. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
What's your name?
I think if you're going with continuity, it's going to suck.
Well, the big fan theory online is because immediately Supernatural fans are some of the, really... Supernatural has the best fandom that you'll ever experience. It's always very like cordial and very respectful and very polite and very just like passionate. And if you meet another Supernatural fan, you have like a friend for life.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're fantastic.
I've discovered that.
Yeah. Having said that, the fandom actually came to the defense of the trailer where people were like, no, don't forget, there's a multiverse in Supernatural. Supernatural does have its own multiverse. That's one of the reasons we did it for...
yeah, I guess you're right.
So that could be an Earth 2, an Earth 3.
Could it also be that... Because I noticed Jensen Ackles is very much in the trailer. So
and very much alive?
Very, yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So I wonder if it's like I'm finding out so many things about my parents that I thought were true actually aren't.
Yeah, which I would... In all honesty, if they wanted to do a really good show, they should a young John Winchester learning how to be a hunter.
Yeah.
We would have watched that.
So, I'm game. I will tell you.
Oh yeah, well, Mel and I will watch it, and we listen to I listened to a show called Supernatural: The Crossroads. It's a great podcast. They were a big inspiration for me to even get started. So I'm excited to hear their thoughts on it.
I have to say, if you've never watched Supernatural, it's a little daunting at first because it is 15 seasons, but. My wife and I, we jumped in and we're like, let's just do this. And I was surprised by how quickly we were hooked.
It
took a couple episodes, but after that, we were so excited to sit down and watch Supernatural. And we made it through all 15 seasons. It was worth it.
And I will say to anybody, if you want to watch Supernatural, you can watch just the first 5 seasons.
Yes.
That was the original vision for the show. And in all honesty, the show does end at season 5, and then it does change story structure very strong. It goes very much. Season 1 through 5 is one story. It's one story that's all connected, put together, and it has beginning, middle, and end. Everything makes sense for the most part by the end of it. Season 6 on, they went very season by season, trial by error.
Is that when it started to get more angelic and...
Leviathans and all that stuff, yeah.
Which I still liked, but it wasn't as good as, when...
but like season 6 is its own story, which, I mean, it does lead to season 7 like most shows do, but it's a very self-contained.
Is that when Chuck starts coming into...
No, season 10 is when
he's
Chuck...
that late? Wow.
Yeah, we don't see him for a few years.
But what's his name? Angel.
Cassiel?
Cassiel. When does he come in?
Season 4.
Oh, okay. He is that early.
Episode 1, season 4.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. Like the black and white vampire monster one is one of the best episodes ever.
Monster movie, it's called.
Is it?
Yep.
Oh, it's so good. We still quote it to this day.
Yeah, and even if you want to just watch a little Supernatural, you can watch like some of their highlight episodes.
Standalone episodes.
Yeah, very good with their Freak of the Week episodes, as they're called.
But Boys season 3 trailer, it came out. We're excited. Soldier Boys looks awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited because Lauren, my wife, is going to watch it with me because she loves Jensen Ackles.
Oh, man, she's going to love Herogasm.
Never seen The Boys before at all. So I'm not sure if she's quite ready for this.
Well, they are adapting Herogasm, which is going to be... Jensen Ackles has spoken a little bit about it, and even he's like a little like...
I read the Herogasm series in the comics, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how are they going to make this?
Well, they're also taking some liberties with Soldier Boy in the comics. So... I'm lucky that for The Boys, just like Invincible, I didn't know the comics at all. Like, I had a general idea, but Soldier Boy, there were actually 2 Soldier Boys.
Okay.
And one was a little bit more like the Jensen Ackles that we're seeing, and then the other was like a timid, like, wimpy kind of guy that Homelander totally takes advantage of physically. And,
I remember that,
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm excited to see what they want to do with it, and obviously the trailer makes it seem different than what we expected.
Yes.
Without giving anything away, because obviously we don't know too much.
He seems more of a weapon.
Yes, and way more powerful. Because he was supposed to be just a Captain America ripoff, which is hilarious because he was in the top running for Captain America back in the day.
I think I did know that.
Him, John Krasinski, they were both in the running. And I think
John Krasinski, gosh, he'll never make it into the superhero universe.
I know, right? Well, he'll never come back. But unless you want some spaghetti. Do you get it?
No.
Wanda turns him into spaghetti.
Oh, right. Spoilers.
But anyway.
Umbrella Academy season 3 trailer dropped, which rules. I'm very excited for it. I have to say, it looks just as much fun as season 1 is pretty good. Season 2 is a lot of fun. Season 3 looks like it might even be better than season 2. Like I love they keep going with the whole save the world in so many days kind of trope.
Yeah, they're very good at it.
And I have to say, I've read the Umbrella Academy comics, and the show transcends the comics. Like, you do not have to read them
That's
at
rare.
all. Yeah,
It is very
like it's
rare.
so much better than the comics.
Yeah, that's a rare thing. And we'll obviously, for The Boys and the Umbrella Academy, we'll do episodes on with Umbrella Academy's a lot easier because they're going to drop every single episode. So usually when they do a full episode drop, we'll do it the following week just so everybody has time to sit down and watch, because I can't binge. I'll be the first one to admit I cannot just sit down for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
See, I will wait until a show finishes and then I'll binge.
See, I love the week to weeks.
Yeah.
Like, we'll watch. What do we watch? I watch Holy Moly. I love Holy Moly. But
What's Holy Moly?
It's a competitive golf, mini golf show.
That thing. That's right.
But what am I? Young Justice is week to week still, going back to
See,
comic
I'm
books.
watching The Flight Attendant, and I waited till like 6 episodes were out so I could just watch.
The closest thing I get to binging is if I'm DVRing something, I'll start at 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
So if it starts at 8, I'll start it at 8:20 just so I can fast forward through all the commercials. I timed it perfectly.
You're a rebel, Dottie.
That's what I'm here for. Just challenging the hierarchy.
So that's it for trailers, but we have more news. Oh, no, actually, I do have one more trailer I'll talk about. Secret Invasion apparently is going to be set during the blip. So the Disney Plus show with Nick Fury in it is happening during the 5 years. So my guess,
he's blipped.
yeah, we don't know exactly how that's going to work. So here's a theory I've read online, and this seems to be the popular one, is that the Skrulls, because Secret Invasion is all about the Skrulls, that the Skrulls notice the blip. They're like, this is our chance to infiltrate. So they come down, and that's when they sort of the Nick Fury is the Skrull kind of thing comes out.
Which is my issue, because they tried to flip the script with the Skrulls, making them good guys.
Yep.
And obviously at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yes.
We find out, that
Nick Fury's been a Skrull all this time.
Oh, I can't. And then you see Nick Fury with all the Skrulls like working together. Like that's why when they announced Secret Invasion, I was like, I mean, is there like an evil sect of Skrulls?
So is it possible that the real Nick Fury will come back when the blip starts, and that wasn't actually Nick Fury, but how did he have Captain Marvel's pager? So who knows? Too many timelines.
I am just
McAvoy or Stewart can't keep up with these timelines. So, and now the rest is all Disney Plus stuff. So apparently Daredevil is officially coming back as a Disney Plus show. Now they've confirmed only that it's a show, but I think we can safely assume it's going to have Charlie Cox and
Vincent D'Onofrio
as Daredevil and
Kingpin respectively.
Thank you for finishing my...
That's what I'm here for. You looked like you were struggling. Which is interesting because Echo's coming out. They released their first still from Echo, and I think
they just wrapped filming. Or just started. One of those two.
Something along those lines. Are we talking about She-Hulk too?
That's my last thing here, yeah. All right, so so Paul and I have not talked about She-Hulk at all, and just his response there kind of gives me an indication as to his feelings. So they dropped a She-Hulk trailer and a release date. It's coming out August 17th, and here's the synopsis. This new comedy series sees Bruce Banner help his cousin, Jennifer Walters, when she needs an emergency blood transfusion, and guess what? She receives his powers too. Tatiana Maslany will play Jennifer, who's a lawyer specializing in superhuman-oriented legal cases, and Mark Ruffalo is back as the Hulk alongside Tim Roth, who plays the Abomination. Now, we saw a trailer. I've seen two things. I've seen 9 episodes and I've seen 10 episodes, so I don't know which. I've seen that in a couple places. It doesn't matter, though. But they're only half hour, and they're considered legal comedies. So I watched the trailer. Paul, feelings on the trailer?
I'm not excited. I have no problem. I like the concept. The concept is there for me. We've seen shows that deal with kind of the ramifications of living in a superpowered world, right? And I still want to do either an article on our website or an actual podcast episode about why living in a superhero world would suck. Yes. Because it's then terrible.
Your girlfriend gets run over by a train.
Yeah. But you have what was it? Powerless, I think that was a show where it was the team that cleaned up after superheroes and stuff like that.
I do remember that.
Yeah, vaguely. It lasted half a season. Yeah. I think it was a little ahead of its time.
I think it was like an NBC show or something.
Yeah, it was a little ahead of its time, and that was the issue, because now, in the movies, we've seen damage control, we've seen all these things, what happens when these giant world-ending events happen.
Well, and that's why Adrian Toomes' story was so great, because he found ways to take advantage of it through scrap collecting.
Which people would, and people sympathized with him. So for me, this trailer comes out, and I was like, all right. I'm going to watch it. Obviously, we have a podcast that I don't have a choice. Dang it! But we made our thoughts about Mark Ruffalo's Hulk very clear during our Hulk episode. I don't know if you were there for the Hulk. I think you missed that one. That was one of our character studies. And one of my biggest gripes, and we're going to talk about this gripe when we talk about Moon Knight. So all this stuff is
we're leading up to
segue
Moon Knight.
into it. Disney plays it incredibly safe, and now Marvel's playing it for laughs. And I hate to say it because the Hulk became a fan favorite after Avengers. Not so much in Avengers Age of Ultron, because a lot of people were like, why are they in love? Those two? It's weird. Hey, big guy. Sun's getting real low. But Thor Ragnarok rolls around.
And that brought it back.
And we fell in love with the Hulk, who is his own character. Bruce Banner and the Hulk were two separate characters, like as they should be in the comics. Then Avengers Endgame rolls around.
And we had Professor Hulk.
We have or Smart Hulk, as he's called, who they neutered completely. They basically killed the Hulk for laughs.
Yeah, and he comes across more as like the Jolly Green Giant.
Yes, and it's jarring. Yeah. They did not combine the two characters. It's Bruce Banner in a new body. And I don't have a problem with Bruce Banner as he's been portrayed, but like we missed character development. We missed the chance to make a brand new character and have an arc. Like they killed the Hulk for Bruce Banner. Now this show's coming around, and we just saw in Captain Marvel that he's back to normal. But now in this show, he's the Hulk.
Yeah.
And his arm is fine.
No, I thought...
No, you see him plenty of times with his arms out, and during the commercial break, we'll watch.
Okay.
Yeah. But so for me, I was never a big fan of Smart Hulk. It was funny the first time when we saw it in theaters.
Right.
But
now it's played itself out.
Imagine if the Hulk himself had been the one to do the snap. I think that would have been a way more powerful moment. The character that wants to be left alone more than anything, making that decision to save the universe, basically, much better storytelling.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't have a problem with a legal drama set in the worlds of in the world of Marvel.
Right. Holy cow!
I know, I told you.
I could have sworn he had his arm in a sling, but no, you're totally right.
He does in Captain Marvel when he's in his normal form.
Yeah. But I'm looking at the scene where he's helping her transform, and he's got a
totally
hoodie on with all arms okay.
Yep. So a lot of questions. I think it would have been more fun if they did an actual legal drama on Disney Plus where She-Hulk was a character, Matt Murdock was a character, and every episode, almost like a Brooklyn Nine-Nine with superheroes.
Okay.
That would have been a lot of fun, and I would have enjoyed that. And then you introduce She-Hulk in this show, and then do your movie, right? Because as far as we know, She-Hulk's not getting a movie. We definitely know Moon Knight's not getting a movie. Or Daredevil again. He's getting his own Disney Plus show. And unfortunately, we also said it for Black Widow. They played it very safe with the character.
Yeah. So here's my feeling on She-Hulk. So I have to say, this was something I was actually really excited about because I was a big Orphan Black fan with Tatiana Maslany, and she's a fantastic actress. She's great at playing, split personalities, especially, as seen in Orphan Black. And I watched the trailer, and I was like, what the hell did I just see?
Yeah.
It was, well, first of all, there is an uncanny valley with her face.
The CGI's rough.
Now, they have a few months, so maybe they can work that out.
They'll clean it up.
I don't know if they can clean it up enough. Mark Ruffalo's face always looked good as the Hulk.
They perfected that one, yeah.
She doesn't look great. And also, the comedy looks just terrible. I was hoping for sort of a moonlighting feel to it, which kind of gave me an indication by the logo. I thought it was going to be like an 80s. Yeah, it felt like an 80s kind of, with moonlighting, it seemed like a fun 80s kind of, Bruce Willis, and Sybil Shepherd kind of, war of words and of the sexes and everything. And that looked like fun. So they ended up not doing that, which is fine. I can get behind that. But here's the problem, I think, is that the comedy that they're using is Marvel comedy amped up. And it doesn't work. Like Marvel comedy is good as bathos, where it undercuts tension, whereas their comedy is like that's why Ragnarok was so great, because Taika Waititi brought his sense of comedy to it, and they're not doing that. And it just, the plot looks terrible. The jokes didn't land at all with me. I'm like, all right, maybe I just had a bad experience. So I actually rewatched it like 3 or 4 times. And it just got worse every single time. I am really worried about She-Hulk. It looks god-awful.
That's why, and we're going to talk about it with Moon Knight. I know I keep teeing it up, but that's why I'm worried about Daredevil. Because Disney Plus would never make a show like Jessica Jones now.
Oh, yeah.
Jessica Jones was so good season 1 because it was on Netflix, and they tackled some deep stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And some traumatic stuff.
And there's sex scenes too, and there's like alcoholism.
Yeah.
You know, it's
and
rough.
that's just Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
You know, Daredevil dealt with violence and post-traumatic stress to other degrees.
I still remember some of the rougher moments where Kingpin like slams a guy's head in the door and kills him that way.
And they're putting this on Disney Plus.
Disney Plus needs to figure out how to have an adult section.
They have their new parental controls, but that's about it. Yeah. No.
See, they own all the 20th Century Fox stuff, so they need to start putting that on Disney Plus.
They started
the
to,
whole
but,
Alien franchise.
Yeah.
They own that. They need to start promoting that.
So and again, this leads us into Moon Knight and some of the qualms that we have, because it's no secret that we were not blown away by Moon Knight. If you guys have been keeping track of Rob's reviews,
which is sad because initially I was excited
we were
Moon
very
Knight.
excited.
Yeah.
And it has its merits. It has its good.
Got a
but
couple moments, right?
Unfortunately, we find it right in the middle of the road. But
I just want to say one quick thing about She-Hulk too. News has been coming out over the past couple months. The rumors are that She-Hulk is a mess.
Yeah.
And that's been confirmed in a couple places. So maybe it is now. It is possible that by the time a show comes out, they can save it. You know, Star Wars, the famous story with Star Wars is that it was saved in the editing room, that It was just a disaster before that. So maybe they can work some magic.
I guess we'll find out. But we are going to take a quick break because that wraps up our news. And when we come back, we are tackling Disney Plus's Moon Knight. Today's episode is brought to you by Raise Energy Drinks from Rep Sports. Whether you're trying to crush your afternoon workout or just need a little extra pick-me-up, Raise Energy is just the boost that you're going to need. So if you go to repsports.com and any product that you order, enter the code MISFIT89 at checkout to receive 15% off. Anything that you guys buy from that store helps our network grow, and we fully appreciate everything you guys do. That's MISFIT89 at checkout, repsports.com. All right, we are back, and we are talking Rob's least favorite Marvel production? Question mark?
That's actually a good question, because all right, I think it might be the most disappointing of them.
Okay, elaborate.
Because what if I didn't like it all?
That's fair.
And Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I know, like Ronnie, that was one of his favorites, but it fell apart for me at the end completely, and I was really annoyed. This one, okay, so weeks and weeks ago when we sat down, Paul and I and Ronnie, we said, we'd only seen the first episode of Moon Knight, and Paul, I know you and I were like, hey, we were
intrigued, we were ready.
We were into it, and I think I even gave it like 4 out of 5 stars on the website, and Ronnie was like, he said he wasn't feeling it. Mm-hmm. And, we were like, you're crazy and everything. And it just got like it just kept going in weirder, but not good weird directions, and just it was kitchen sink style of filmmaking where they just threw everything in there and hoped that it all works out in the end. And it was all over the place for me. So that's it for something that had such high hopes and had such great, actors involved like Ethan Hawke and Oscar Isaac. Just seemed it was so disappointing at the end for me.
I will agree that it did not live up to expectations, and it's driven by Oscar Isaac, who does a phenomenal job. Oscar Isaac's another one of those actors who is finally like really getting his time to shine, and I enjoy his work. Rob's already kind of looking at me with trepidation. But for me, I think that his performance, especially when, and by the way, full spoilers for Moon Knight, we're gonna go through the entire show. We're not gonna go episode by episode, but kind of character by character, things that we like, things that we didn't like, things that could have been better. But I think that this show is the first indication of
chinks in the armor,
suffering from being on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
because Moon Knight in the comics is an exceptionally violent and complicated character. They managed to capture some of the complication, and then when you finally see what was so traumatic to Mark Spector to have him create Stephen Grant, I was like, okay, they all right, here's some of what I was expecting to see. But
I will give it that they went dark.
Yes.
Which is good. Like, that's not Disney. Like they went to mental illness. They went to straight out murder. Like, at least that was good. I think it was just, it should have been more fun than it was. And I know that seems silly to talk about mental illness.
See, I'll disagree because respectfully, because I think that this show should have gone darker, and it could have had.
I would agree with you on that.
It could have had a funnier character. I think it was missing a good comedic. Stephen Grant was the comedic relief of it.
That didn't fly for me.
It only worked when he was interacting with Mark, I think, because he shifted from comedic relief because. Basically, Steven was also the audience surrogate. He was the one finding out information as we were. And I think it shifted to eventually he became the moral compass. And then there was nobody who was a comedic relief. Even like Layla had funny moments, but she was I would have much rather watched a Layla show, unfortunately, because I think she was a much more interesting character.
Really? See, all right. Everyone, and I'm sure we'll get into this, everyone keeps writing about and talking about how, like, oh, she's such a breakout character.
I wouldn't call her a breakout character.
I found her boring.
I found she did better when she wasn't Mark Spector or Stephen Grant. Like because they basically send her off on her way, like around episode 4 when Mark gets shot, and she's kind of doing her own thing for the rest of the show almost. And I think that's when she starts to shine a little bit. The scene of her with Ethan Hawke where he's like, he knows that she's around the corner still listening and he's just monologuing. I like that scene. I really do. I just felt like
the whole thing, like Ethan Hawke and Oscar Isaac, I thought were just capable of so much more than what they were giving us. You know, having seen them, you know, I've seen Ethan Hawke totally tear. You know, there's one show, it's called The Good Lord Bird, where he plays John Brown, abolitionist John Brown, and he's a maniac in that role. And that's recent. That's only about a year ago. Oscar Isaac, I just saw him in a movie called The Card Counter, and he was great. He was brilliant. He was in Annihilation. He does such great character work, and he was so bland for me here. Like there were so many times, other than like an accent, you couldn't tell which was Mark and which was Steven.
I'll argue that. I will argue that because their hair was different. Very Christopher Reeve.
Hair, I will give you.
Christopher Reeve did the same thing with Superman and Clark Kent. Their hair was parted sideways.
Mannerisms were almost the same for me, though.
I found Steven to be much more skittish. He was very, very turn and look what's happening. Turn and look what's happening. Like, very like, oh.
I just felt it should have been more than just those little things, though.
I think this show suffers for 2 reasons. One, 6 episodes.
Yeah.
There needed to be another episode somewhere in there. And 2, this show would have been better if they started off with him just being Moon Knight and just being a vigilante, and we follow him. And like, also I'm going to say it, they should have had the mental asylum be real.
I feel
he should have woken up in a mental asylum with those doctors, but then he should have been rescued from it at the end.
So
like, no, all this stuff happened. This really did happen. There's I
want to just stress that. So what Paul is referring to is that at the end of episode 4, there's a big twist where it looks like
he gets shot.
It looks like he's in a mental asylum. I loved that. I wish they had done that so much sooner because for the first 4 episodes, it just felt like the Mummy retread.
Right.
And I wasn't into that at all.
Did you ever watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
No.
There was an episode where a demon attacks Buffy and it like poisons her, and then suddenly she wakes up in a mental asylum. And the entire episode is her going back and forth between the Buffy world and this mental asylum where they're trying to explain to her that she's actually crazy and that she's been in this asylum for years and none of this stuff is real. And, you know, they go throughout the episode and eventually, because they still have 4 more seasons after this, eventually she kills the demon, blah, blah, blah. But then it cuts and the last scene is her in the mental asylum and the doctors are checking and they're like, no, she's back in her state.
Wow.
And I was like, holy crap, that was a bold,
right? Because
it leaves you thinking and it leaves you guessing.
It's real.
This show should have started off maybe episode 2 at the end. So
I would agree.
He wakes up in this mental asylum, and you could still do like the characters are, or have just fresh actors in it playing the doctors and the stuff, and maybe episode 5 even like that, and that's a bold statement. Like Layla comes and gets him out of there, and like, no, this stuff really did happen. Like you really are this vigilante. And you could have started off the show with him as an established vigilante, you know? Yeah. Oh, God, it's Moon Knight, you know, like that sort of thing. They played it very safe. And then when they finally introduced the idea of something happening, then they backtracked, which is the Marvel way, unfortunately, nowadays.
Yeah.
Black Widow is the biggest victim of it, where we had a strong, powerful woman character and a character that we loved. I know Joss Whedon's kind of the hot topic these days and kind of taboo, but like Black Widow in Avengers is fantastic. She steals the scenes that she's in. And, you know, like even like the interrogation scene, this guy's giving me everything. Wait, what?
She was one of the only good things in Iron Man 2.
And they managed to then completely neuter and comedically affect her in Black Widow. Like, unfortunately, and I know Rob and I joke, we have our Marvel versus DC banter, but at the end of the day, we'll be very objective. Like, I'll be the first one to say the DC universe is a mess.
Oh, and I'll be the first to say that the Batman was the best thing that's happened to DC in years.
Exactly. And even like, we'll both agree that the Batman was one of the best superhero movies just in general, not Marvel or DC withstanding. But for us, I think we can also both agree that the Marvel formula works, but not 100%.
Yeah, I have to say it's a show like this that made me realize that at some point the superhero bubble is going to burst. And it's going to be, you know, like I compare it oftentimes to the Western genre. That Westerns were huge for, you know, 50s and then in the 60s and the spaghetti Westerns in the late 60s. And then at some point they ran out of ideas and everyone grew tired of it. Which
makes me nervous because a lot of famous filmmakers have been saying the same thing, that eventually it is. And I'm scared that, because we love our Marvel content, we love our DC content, we love our superhero content because, you know, a lot of you guys probably listening, we grew up at a time where superhero stuff was trash, and it was hard to find decent superhero material.
You were an outcast if you liked
exactly.
Superhero stuff.
Nowadays, I walk around the high school that I'm working at, and kids are wearing Superman shirts and stuff like that. It's a cool time. It really, really is. And obviously, even though Doctor Strange had a huge drop off, it's still making a ton of money. So it was very disappointing for this show to suddenly to be such a misstep.
Yeah, to me this is a big misstep. It just, and I'm thankful that I think, because Oscar Isaac is not signed on for anything else past this.
So that's the other issue.
And so I'm hoping this might be the end of Moon Knight.
So that's the other issue, right? So this show only got the one season. It was supposed to get the one season treatment, just like WandaVision. And I think it's a shame that at this point, it does not look like we are going to get Moon Knight in anything else.
No.
I think Oscar Isaac's Moon Knight would have been really good in this She-Hulk show. Imagine him on trial.
Oh yeah.
But like nobody knows that these events happen. There was a giant monster fight at the end, and nobody knew what was going on. It sucks. But let's talk some of our characters. And I know we talked a little bit about him, but we have Oscar Isaac playing three characters basically. We have him as Mark Spector,
2.1.
Two and
three is a generous number.
3 is a very generous number, but. Did you know much about Moon Knight before jumping into this?
A little bit. I had read some of the comics a couple years ago. I knew the existence of Jake Lockley, so I knew at some point he was coming. And you could see, like, there were a couple episodes where it was hinting that there was a third in there. I'm like, all right.
And unfortunately, Marvel used him as an excuse to cut back on the violence. That's my theory. Yeah. They used him to do those jump cuts where the massive violence, the most violent and terrible scenes that Moon Knight unfortunately is famous for. It's like, I know you and I have differing opinions about the Punisher, but it's like watching the Punisher and him not shooting a gun.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good theory. I like that. Yeah, because they definitely were able to cut costs a little bit by having him black out.
And one time makes sense. Right. The second time also makes sense because they address it. Both Steven and Mark are both like, "Was that you? No. Was that you? No. Well, what's going on then?"
And I was shocked to see it in the finale.
They should have had Jake Lockley. Yes. Don't get me wrong. It was it was like a twist, and like I get it. Like I understand their mentality, but they should have just had that character shift.
Yep.
Have Jake Lockley, because we wouldn't know who he is.
No.
Literally tear that and watch it.
I agree with you.
Because the ending fight scene is fun, where you got Mr. Knight and Moon Knight kind of working together, and the transitions, like, because they do form their bonds.
Is that his name, Mr. Knight?
Mr. Knight, yep.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And in the comics, Mr. Knight was a police informant. That was like his role. Stephen Grant was actually like a billionaire playboy. I forget what Mark Spector did. He was a mercenary, and then Jake Lockley was a cabbie, and that's why he's driving.
That I did know.
Yeah. So I think watching the two of them, that is one of my favorite scenes.
Agreed. Yeah, I have to say I loved it in the last episode where they're working together and they're shifting, and they're battling.
And nothing made me smile more than when Steven in his Mr. Knight outfit like pushes Ethan Hawke away and he fixes his suit really quick.
Yes.
Very
that's a great moment.
Very James Bond's. Like
Yes.
there's a scene in one of the James Bond movies where he fixes his
where he
cufflinks.
jumps off the train that's being demolished. Yeah.
And then he fixes his cufflink. And I was like, all right. So, and I like seeing the only character that really grows from this show is Steven.
Yeah.
And which is weird because Steven, and this is not me trying to be disrespectful to anybody who maybe have experienced dissociative identity disorder, or, you know, it's much more in the common lexicon nowadays, but like, he's an imaginary, he's a figment. He's not real, but we
Right.
fell in love with him.
Well, and I did like that twist that it turned out that he was the fake personality, like that Mark was the original and Steven was invented so that way he could deal with
The trauma.
with the trauma of his mother. I wrote this line. I have to quote my own line here. Let's see if I can remember it. That his mother, they showed all those scenes of her ruining birthday parties. They said she'd ruined more birthday parties than pineapple pizza and gluten-free cake.
Those scenes were hard to watch because, again, that was when we were finally getting into the deeper stuff. Like that woman was traumatized and post-traumatic stress, and now, you know, there's survivor's guilt for Mark, and, you know, how do I live my life? And the dad's in the middle where he's like, he's trying to take care of the woman he loves, but also save his son. And it's like, again, there's an episode missing. It feels like there is an episode where they could have really gotten into the meat and potatoes of it. Like, it's the only time we see Mark actually vulnerable, where he's yelling at Steven, don't go upstairs, because he also wants to protect Steven, because Steven protects him. And he's too proud to ever admit it until he finally loses Steven.
I think when they started to go, here was the jumping the shark moment for me, when Khonshu took hold of Steven and Mark and had to go before that, like, tributary or whatever it was, and had to like plead the case for why they should do something about Ethan Hawke's character. This is just getting goofy at this point. I think the introduction of so many of the Egyptian gods got weird, and
so,
like if they had stuck with like one god, like, you know, because they were Amit, was that the one they were trying to
stop Amit? Yes.
Like if they had stuck with Amit and Khonshu and all the rest were just like severe background, like maybe just a mention, I think it could have been better.
I think it would have been better if they introduced them in the very last episode as a twist at the end, because again, imagine if the entire show we're questioning whether or not any of this is real. Then finally at the end, not only, I mean, Khonshu could have been an imaginary personality as well. Like, I think in the comics, again, I'm not familiar with Moon Knight. I want to say in the beginning of the Moon Knight comics, there was a question about whether or not Khonshu was actually real or just something that Mark Spector imagined. And then finally it was confirmed, and the Egyptian god stuff was brought in and all that, because producer Melanie loved all that stuff. And I do too. I'm a sucker for good mythology. But then it leads to more questions about, well, if the Egyptian gods are real, but the Norse gods are aliens that people thought were, and then the Eternals,
and then there's magic, and
then there's magic. The Eternals, who like other gods were based off of it. That's the problem when you start getting. It's weird because it's a connected universe that feels very disconnected.
And they're going to fall into the same traps that the comics fell into, where it just got so messy,
too complicated,
and they lost, you know, readers.
It would have been better if at the very end of this show, Mark and you know, Steven, they're finally like, all right, we won, we beat the bad guy. We're not actually completely crazy, we're just a little crazy. Like, and then suddenly, bam, he's in the middle of this tomb, surrounded by all these gods, and they're like, "Oh, you thought just Khonshu was real?" That would have been better. And like, you know, you took the universe into your own hands, and it led to the death of a god. You gotta, you know, face whatever judgment. Then just ends. That would have been a great setup.
Now, to say that I loved Hawkeye is you know, that's fair, but. And I know Hawkeye was not trying anything new. Like, it was very much like comfort food. I loved it. But one of the things that Hawkeye did really, really, really well was the idea of setups and payoffs.
Right.
That they would introduce something that 2 or 3 episodes later would come back of like, oh, remember that? And then they would do something with it. This one was all setup and almost no payoff. Like, for example, like the very first opening scene for the show was showing Ethan Hawke's character breaking the glass and putting it in his shoes. what was the payoff for that?
Nothing.
There was that one scene at the end where he showed the blood coming out.
It was a David Koresh type thing. Yeah.
Like there was no payoffs for anything that they were setting up.
Just to show that he was crazy.
Or like the fact that he was chaining himself to the bed. What was the payoff there other than they just showed it again in the final episode?
No, they make fun of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why he did it, so because obviously he was sleepwalking. But again, I feel like there's an episode missing where we would have gotten a lot more. It's so weird. And we're going to talk, obviously that's an issue I'm going to have when they do Daredevil. Are they going to do a 6? I mean, Daredevil I think was around 13. Netflix usually does about 13-ish.
Yeah, I think it was like around there.
I know Defenders was much shorter.
That was like 8.
Yeah, which is fine because you've already done your character. And that's why I think Hawkeye was so good, because we had so much character build-up and development and we wanted him to. We were rooting for Clint Barton. We really were. As much as people made fun of Hawkeye, I think even though Avengers: Age of Ultron, the farm stuff kind of takes the pacing down a little, I think subconsciously we really started to love Hawkeye because he is that normal guy. Yeah. I mean, the first trailer, you see him putting the peas on his arm, and he's like, "I'm in so much pain."
Yeah.
Like,
it was very annoying because it was so many like no payoffs for anything. Like, and each episode would introduce new stuff that would not play into the next episode.
Right.
Like there was no continuity. Tonally, it was all over the place, which I know people are going to be like, well, that's because of they wanted the dissociative disorder.
But they didn't. That shows the lack of screenwriting ability, the fact that was not conveyed the right way.
I should also point out that critically, it actually did very, very well. There were a lot of people who were giving A's across the board to this. I also know there's a lot of fans who did love Moon Knight too.
And that's not to say that we hated it. We just weren't blown away by it.
I don't know. I might have hated it.
So let's find some good, right? Because we do like to look at things objectively, but we also like to look at the bright side.
I will tell you good right away.
Hit it.
First thing that comes to my brain in the finale. A kaiju fight between Amit and Khonshu.
It was real.
Holy cow! Who knew that was going to happen? It was a Godzilla fight,
and it was surprisingly realistic. One of my favorite scenes, I think it's either in the first or second episode, is when Steven's hiding in the bathroom and the jackal's after him, and Mark's telling him, "Give me the body." Yeah. And we finally get that first Moon Knight transformation, that the music, the shot of him turning and walking towards the camera, it's fantastic. Like, there's some really good cinematography in this. I did like Layla when she transformed into the Scarlet Scarab.
I did like that.
It was an interesting, and that ending fight scene is really good.
And I loved Cuckoo Layla.
Yeah, crazy Layla.
Yeah, where I don't know, if you look closely, she's got all these cue cards on a board. If you look closely, they're actually the credits to the show.
Yeah. That was the only scene of this show where I had to stop and like look around. I was like, all right, here's what we were waiting for.
So much cool stuff in that scene at the asylum there.
I actually really did like Khonshu, and I liked how people didn't like how the other gods didn't like him.
Oh yeah.
The idea of avatars and the gods, again, this is the same problem Eternals had, but I liked it better in this. It's we can get involved, but within the realistic terms. Like, we can't. Humans have to be able to live their own lives and choose their own destiny. I'm very curious though when this show takes place, because we never get a definitive. This show is very disconnected from the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think there's only like one or two passing mentions of.
Yeah, I was trying to think that too. I don't think there's much.
So I don't even know. And if you guys listening can confirm or deny this, we don't know if this takes place before or after Thanos, because that is a question that the Eternals does address. They're like, why didn't you guys help with Thanos? But a question that I keep having, and they never addressed it in Eternals, was if any of them got blipped away.
Oh yeah,
because it was half of all living life, and we do find out in Eternals that they're robots. Kind of.
I don't know.
Yeah. But I would be very curious to see if these gods were affected by it, because Thor mentions that Asgard was wiped out half by Thanos in the opening scene and those are the survivors, and then half got blipped away. So Thor does address that, but I'm very curious to see if the Egyptian gods and any of these other deities that do, because Marvel and DC have brought in a lot of other god characters. Yeah. I mean, we're gonna have a Zeus in the new Thor movie played by Russell Crowe. So they got to really answer some questions for us about what makes this a mythological god, what makes this an alien god, what makes this an eternal. I hope Eternals and Inhumans, man, they're both living on the same rock at this point. Is it bothering you, the blip thing?
Now I don't even know if this. Yeah, when is this?
They never say.
I had a bigger problem. See, I thought my biggest problem was why was there some sort of a cave that floods during rainstorms right next to brownstones in a city?
Yeah, that's another issue. Logistically, we're not sure. But, it makes sense that no other Marvel heroes are necessarily evolved because, we haven't... This is the biggest problem with comics. Every superhero lives in America, most specifically New York City.
And you know what? Okay. Talking about good stuff, I loved the cultural aspects of the show.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought that was fantastic. I loved the afterlife that they went to the Field of Reeds. I loved I love that they casted so many ethnically appropriate people. Mm-hmm. Like they didn't whitewash anything, and it felt authentic.
Yeah, I like the idea you talk about the Field of Reeds and all that like in the Marvel universe, your afterlife is subjective to what you believe in or what you're associated with. And I love that concept because, you look at our real world where it's very much, this is wrong, this is right.
Right.
And if you're not agreeing with me, you're wrong. Like, it's nice to see a little bit of diversity. And I will be the first. I don't like when it's rammed down my throat. Perfect example is the show Glee. I used to I loved the first 2 seasons of Glee.
Yep, same here.
Because it felt all natural, and it felt like these are people that I would interact with in real life. And then suddenly it was like, all right, well, enjoy, and then just rammed down your throat.
For me, it was when they started doing like Michael Jackson week and Madonna week.
Yeah, it was a little, it was cash grab week. Yes. But so this show does a really good job at exploring different cultural bases. And you understand why people are attracted to Ethan Hawke's character because especially in a world of superpowered beings, right? Because this is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We don't know when. We don't know exactly, what has happened at this point in this universe. We could say it's mostly modern, but in all honesty, I could argue that it's the mid-90s. Like the fashion, the technology, it doesn't really give it away, which is very strange.
Yeah, because he has a flip phone at one point.
So I would be very curious if we ever get direct confirmation, but I hate to say that this show feels like a one and done.
I hope it is. There was so much to it. Like, here's another big problem I had is that I didn't know what characters I should be rooting for and which characters I should be caring for. Because to be honest, I found Steven to be annoying. And Mark he seemed murderous. Khonshu was just a dick. Mm-hmm. And I knew Ethan Hawke, I shouldn't be rooting for him because he's a cult leader, so you don't root for the cult leader. So I got that much down. But I wanted to, like, I didn't know who I should be worried and caring. Layla, I think, was the only one that I'm like, okay, I suppose I should be caring for her, but I didn't feel anything for her. And so I think emotionally I wasn't connecting with any of the characters. Like, I mean, think about Hawkeye. Hawkeye, you felt for him because you're like, he just wants to get to his family in time for Christmas.
And also we knew him.
Right. And
I think it helped that we had so much history with with Hawkeye.
So is this the first show where the main character is completely new on Disney Plus?
Disney Plus, yes.
Yeah, I think it is.
Because we had WandaVision, we had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki. I don't know if anybody knew Loki or cared about Loki before. I'm kidding. We all know he was like biggest
Put down the knives.
biggest fan favorite. Trying to think what came after What If, which again we knew the characters well enough. Hawkeye, like.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that was the issue here.
And also, say what you will, like as much as we loved Hawkeye, there's only really the one new character set is Kate Bishop and her family.
That's what I was thinking. Is that at least with Kate Bishop, they introduced her through Hawkeye, and with Echo, they introduced her through the show of Hawkeye. Maybe that was a thing here. Is that because for me, I couldn't connect with someone because everyone was new. Mm-hmm. Like it was like throwing the child into the deep end and hoping they swim. Yeah, and I wasn't swimming for a long time.
That's why I think this movie or the show would have benefited more. A, if they had not played it so safe. B, if maybe they had changed the structure of it around, like keep the meat and potatoes, but add some more vegetables to it. And or C, if they had actually just went full movie instead.
I know. Here's another setup and payoff that with no payoff. Midnight Man. That was the guy that Layla knew, the French actor who unfortunately died in a skiing accident. He was in the show, I think the 3rd episode, and he plays in the comics the Midnight Man, and they did nothing with him for the rest of the show. It's
a shame. I will say that one of my favorite scenes is in that episode where Moon Knight's like kicking all the ass, and Steven's like, no, you give me back the body right now. Yeah. And he's like stabbed. He's like, no, take the body back. And I thought that was funny because it was the first indication of their teamwork aspect. But I think I really do say that this show would have benefited better if you start off in New York City with him being the active vigilante, with Mr. Knight doing his thing, and we have to follow along. And again, they tried to spoon feed it to us very nicely, but in all honesty, like this was their opportunity to show us what they would do with a Defenders style property. And I think that's the real issue. We were expecting a Luke Cage, an Iron Fist, a Daredevil, Jessica Jones. We won't talk about Defenders, but we were expecting that style for Moon Knight, because there's a very famous comic panel of Moon Knight and Punisher having a conversation, and it's like Punisher asks him, "Hey, are you still crazy?" He's like, "Hey, do you still murder people?" Like it's
right.
There's more to it, but that's what I'll leave it at. But it's like the indication of these two characters. Moon Knight would have been much better as a Netflix show, I think.
Yeah, I it's so disappointing because I had so much promise and hope for it. So maybe She-Hulk will be the opposite of that, whereas I had no promise and hope for it, but it turns out great.
If they were to do some sort of follow-up to Moon Knight, what would you want them to do?
With the character, you mean?
Yes. So whatever continuity or whatever continuation with Oscar Isaac's Moon Knight, what would be your preferred way they do it?
Moon Knight Punisher.
Moon Knight and Punisher?
Yeah, I think that would be, because I know he does play a big role in the Moon Knight comics. Something where you do have something where we get to see Jake Lockley a lot more. Something that is not so much questioning reality, but is more like reality is completely skewed and I'm okay with it. And we just go forward from there. And he is like, maybe even seeing, that would work. Seeing Moon Knight, all the personalities, but from an outsider point of view.
Yeah.
And not seeing it through Mark or Steven's point of view.
It's a big disappointment. I know we keep trying to find good things, but a big disappointment. He would have been great in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
It is a shame that the show ended the week a day before Multiverse of Madness dropped, and they did nothing.
Well, that's the same thing with Hawkeye. If you remember, Hawkeye ended
Spider-Man.
right before Spider-Man.
And like the last shot of Spider-Man is him over Rockefeller Center, and we're like,
is Hawkeye down there?
Swing and a miss. But I think that having a character like Mark Spector in Multiverse of Madness, and him being the only one that's like, oh, this is normal. Like, I think a movie follow-up with him where he is the focus and everything else is going crazy, and he's just like the one like, I can handle this. This is Tuesday for me. I think a movie follow-up with him being unfortunately now, he's at a point at the end of the show where he doesn't even realize he's still under Khonshu. He's still Khonshu's avatar.
No, he doesn't, because Jake Lockley's the only one who knows.
That is actually a very fun workaround for Khonshu, and I thought that was an interesting twist, because we don't know how they do address the fact Para was Khonshu's avatar, and a lot of what's happening in the show is, again, we're missing an episode. Where I would have loved to see that backstory. What happened? How does one become an avatar, then stop being an avatar? Like, what is this process? And that's his motivation. He found another god that he's like, no, Khonshu wanted to punish people that did bad things. This one's the Minority Report god, where I'm going to punish them before they do something bad. Again, and that's another great moral and intellectual debate that we could have gotten.
So now the next show we have coming up on Disney Plus is Miss Marvel, another show with totally brand new characters. From that standpoint, do you have any hope, having seen Moon Knight?
I'm keeping my expectations exceptionally low for Miss Marvel.
Why is that?
A couple of reasons. One, I saw the She-Hulk trailer. Two, I understand Kamala Khan has a very big following. She's very popular in the comics. I don't know too much about her. I'll be the first one to be honest about it. But they are promoting this as the new Marvel, because she is associated with Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel and all that. Obviously, is her name. I am worried though, because Carol Danvers in the MCU is exceptionally unlikable. We saw Captain Marvel. It's passable. It is a passable movie.
Yeah. It's got fun moments, but it's not necessarily because of her.
And then they made her so powerful, so OP, that they only have her in 5 minutes of Avengers because they can't figure out. That is a bad sign when they can't figure out how to write for her. Yeah. So I'm looking at Miss Marvel with a lot of. I'm just hesitating because obviously also we're a little. I don't want to say burned by Moon Knight, but a little like, maybe they don't have it completely figured out.
Well, and that's what I'm worried about. I think it was Ronnie that said this, that this is sort of like the phase one again of it's phase one again of the Marvel universe. Where
this is the Arrowverse of the Marvelverse.
Yeah, I see, and I'm sure they know where they're going, but I think they need to let us know where they're going.
I think we talked about it in Multiverse of Madness, where Marvel MCU right now does not feel like it has a plan.
No, I know there's rumors of a Young Avengers. Is that what they're called? And I know that like what's her name, Elaine Bennett, that keeps going around and
I don't know off the top of my head.
The one that from Seinfeld.
Oh, Madam Hydra.
Yeah, her.
Yeah, she's recruiting. I don't want a Young Avengers. I just called the New Avengers because that is a team from the comics.
Is she a bad Avengers?
She's bad.
Okay.
Oh, she looks like she's creating Dark Avengers, and I know you're so excited to see John Walker again, your favorite character.
I will see him as long as I can hate him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's a character who I love to hate.
I would be totally okay with a government-sanctioned Avengers team with like characters like U.S. Agent and stuff like that. In comparison to a new Avengers team and kind of the we saw it a little bit in Falcon and the Winter Soldier with this is Captain America, this is Captain America, like, and then they butt heads. I would be okay with a movie of that.
They need to Kevin Feige, if you're listening, you absolutely need to give us a little bit of a hint as to what the plan is. We need to know that there is a plan. I know you have one, like logically I know you have one, but I need to feel it.
Also, I think that having the multiverse as your plan is fine in concept, but there's a reason why multiverse stories tend to be one big event, not full-on story arcs for multiple characters, because we have not gotten any answers to questions from Loki, from Multiverse of Madness.
Other than Kang with Loki. And even Kang isn't coming out until Quadrophenia, which isn't until...
It's a mania?
Right.
Do you guys just put quantum in front of everything?
No, I think I was referring to The Who.
I thought a little bit. But I feel like especially Loki opened the door, right, to the multiverse. And we never got any questions answered. Like, wait, so Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, and Amazing Spider-Man all happened, but there was no multiverse before this. There was no variants. Like, so
they need to collapse it.
And also, I feel like Avengers took 10 years, and we'll give it the benefit of the doubt. It took 10 years to finish the Infinity Saga,
which is great. But the thing is, at least think about Phase 1. You knew we were leading towards an Avengers-like event. We don't know what we're heading towards now. It doesn't have to be a big bad. We don't have to be like, oh, it's Kang. Oh, it's, what's his name that eats planets? Galactus. It doesn't have to be that big, but we need to know that something is happening.
Right. There has to be a reason for things to be going on, and then a reason for all these heroes to eventually have to join forces and team up. But also, and this is a big Marvel problem, they all feel like they would just get along. And I had more fun watching Tony Stark and Stephen Strange kind of jab at each other than listening to all the quipping of the Avengers. Like, because especially they make fun of it in Avengers Age of Ultron, language, and he beat me by 1 second for the omelet joke. So I want to see a team where they don't necessarily get along, where go back to the Avengers. Like, sometimes simpler is better.
Yeah.
We don't need gigantic stuff. And having a team of new Avengers, especially quote unquote young Avengers, Kate Bishop, Spider-Man being the most veteran, which would be crazy. Yeah. You could do a lot with it. I mean, we don't know where White Vision's floating around.
And where's Morbius in all this?
Hopefully in a far, far, far away. Dealing with Michael Keaton.
Where's like Eddie Brock apparently showed up. He's got to be.
We don't even need to talk about that. Oh, we got such a mess. And it's sad because now it's starting to feel like maybe things are unraveling. I want them to prove me wrong.
Me too.
I want in 5 years for us to go back to this episode and be like, hey, they did have a plan and we were wrong.
So next is Mrs. Marvel. Then after that is Thor: Love and Thunder. Then you've got She-Hulk. Then you've got probably Invasion USA or whatever that thing is.
Secret Invasion.
Then you've got Wakanda Forever. And then you've got...
Which is... That's also frightening. We have not heard...
And they're probably keeping that as much under wraps.
Very close to the best, yes. Yeah. But not even have a teaser. It's making me as nervous as Black Adam's making me, because they're in the middle of reshoots right now, and that movie's coming out this year.
And they pushed it back, too, didn't they?
And also, obviously The Flash is... We'll see Ezra Miller's 19th arrest. Did you see the video of him getting arrested?
No.
There's a video of him. I guess he goes off on the police officer that arrests him because the police officer calls him sir. and he loses his
What's to be lose it at Sir?
Because he is transgender, non-binary. Oh. And he goes off on this cop, and he's going to sue him.
Because every police officer knows your situation when they pull you over.
Such a shame that while you were being booked for your arrest, that the police officer called you Sir. I can't. But, yeah, Ezra Miller's a mess. I don't know what's going to happen with The Flash.
How great and hysterical would it be if they just recast The Flash and just CGI'd someone else's head onto him.
You know, the big rumor is they want to reshoot at least to the end of this and make Grant Gustin. That's why The Flash is the only show still going, and it's only doing a half a season, like a very short last season or season 8. So there are a lot of rumors floating around about it. I would be okay with Grant Gustin taking over as a main continuity Flash, but the problem is they've already done all of his stories.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Unfortunately, Marvel's starting to give us DC vibes with storytelling, and that's a little alarming. I know you wrote it in your review, but series Star City rating.
Okay.
You have to pull up your review.
Yeah, I got to pull it up. Because the original episodes, I was giving like 4. And then it started dropping down to 2. And it was all over the place. And I will say the last episode did redeem a couple of things. Like I did like, again, the kaijus and there were some fun things. There were so many loose threads that were not pulled together. I didn't like that they killed off Ethan Hawke. At least I think they killed him.
If it happens off screen.
I know, So I am going to say 2.5 for the show altogether. It is not necessarily if you are a Marvel completist, yes, obviously you're going to watch it. But if you are not, skip it. Skip it in the same way that What If, you could, because I'll be honest, when we were going to see the Multiverse of Madness, and even afterwards, my family was like, did I need to know anything from What If? And I'm like, no, not really.
Which is, if you listen to our episode, that's one of my biggest gripes, was that the evil Doctor Strange was not Strange Supreme.
I will give it to Marvel in the sense of, if you want to lose viewers, have everything super connected, that you have to have seen like these 30 movies beforehand.
But in all honesty, for What If, which is considered one of their weaker shows, they would have had a big increase of people downloading or watching that after Multiverse of Madness.
And yet we're getting season 2 of that for some reason. I don't know. I don't understand.
That's another thing that's like fun in concept, but do I need it all the time? Not really.
A solid 2.5 for the show. It is not something I want to think about anymore or revisit. I'm hoping Moon Knight will go away. Paul?
I'm going to give it a 3. A little bit higher than you. Is it middle of the road for the most part? Yes. I think it's elevated by a fair amount of good. I know we kind of tore into it, but I liked the look of Moon Knight. I hope that if he does come back,
like his
the costume's fun.
I will say, for the fact that Oscar Isaac, you can't see his face, they actually did a good job of revealing him enough times, because like when it just the hood disappears or something like that. So yeah, costume nailed.
I like the bandages wrapping around him, the glowing eyes, all that stuff. It's very cool. I would be okay if they do bring him back, his suit gets the more modern look, because he's not as associated with Khonshu. Because obviously the suit is subjective. That's why he's like, what are we wearing? You said get a suit. And, he's wearing an actual dress suit.
Was it Psycho Colonel Sanders?
Something like that, yeah. And that's another good thing. There's the great banter between the two of them. We did, we follow along as the show is going. I do say that I've said my 2 save. It's missing an episode. It maybe would have been better as a movie or a Netflix show instead with 13 episodes. So
play up the crazy a little bit too.
I would be interested to see him again, whether he's getting his own property, like a movie sequel or a television sequel, or if he's suddenly in a team with Punisher and Ghost Rider, because people forget that Ghost Rider's running around the MCU too.
People thought that Ghost Rider might have even shown up in Moon Knight.
And again, that would have been a great... I would have much rather seen him end up going to hell than the Field of Reeds.
Yeah.
And there's Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider helps him get out. Like,
oh, that would have been cool.
That would have been so cool. I just thought of that.
We get the Midnight Man.
Yeah. But I think I'm interested to see Mark Spector and Stephen Grant and even Jake Lockley again, just maybe not in his own property. Yeah. Put him in a movie with another team, or have him be a villain. Imagine, like, again, that would have been a great episode of She-Hulk, where she has to defend him, or Daredevil's defending him against, and they're going against each other in court. There's a lot you can do. I just feel like they dropped the ball a little bit on this. The ball bounced and they caught it, but it still
did come up a little bit at the end, but not enough.
Yeah. So we would love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget, you can find us on Facebook. And speaking of which,
Woohoo.
We have Fan Feedback Friday. So this week it's a picture, so bear with me. I'm going to describe it. It's the caption says, "What's an MCU opinion that will get you like this?" And it's a picture of Flint Rider with all the swords around him from Tangled. So we had some fun ones because, like I said, Rob and I love to go back and forth about Marvel, particularly, and DC, but we also do recognize qualms, and we will always have some fun with it. Now, let's see. We have, from our friend Anthony, Endgame disrespected Hulk and Black Widow. We've said it, not so much the Black Widow part. I'll respectfully disagree because I think that her sacrifice, that it's such a great comparison to Thanos throwing Gamora off and a good culmination of Natasha in it. Let's see. The Marvel formula is getting old and tired.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Doctor Strange 2 is towards the bottom of the barrel for MCU movies. By Ronnie. Wow. Excuse me, I'm dying. Let's see. From Rob's film class. Oh, boy. Oh, wow.
Yeah, wait till you hear some of these.
All right.
There's one in particular that I'm curious as to see if you react to properly.
Any of the following suck: Iron Man, Captain Marvel, that Loki was a bad show. Oh.
And I asked, and she said no, she actually didn't care for Loki.
That's fair. That DC's better? I mean,
And
I'll always say that DC has better characters, but Marvel does better stories. Marvel's more relatable, and that's how it was always designed comic book-wise. Let's see. Andrew Garfield is better than Tom Holland. I'll agree.
I know you do,
I will agree.
yeah.
I will be the first one to say that I defended Andrew Garfield when those movies came out, and now people are like, "We love Andrew Garfield." I was like,
yeah, we're definitely having a Garfield assance.
I was there when the movie was
made. One of my students had a T-shirt on. It had the 3 different Spider-Men in their poses with all their outfits.
Pointing,
and it says no, and it says underneath one, it says Peter 1, Peter 2, Peter 3.
Let's see. Tobey Maguire is the worst. I think Tobey Maguire suffers from superhero movies at the time.
Well, he was also the first. So.
Yeah. Let's see. MCU doesn't need to connect everything. That's fair. People blame Star-Lord too much when it was Nebula's fault. I will always defend Star-Lord's reaction in that scene.
Oh, when
he breaks the concentration that Mantis has on Thanos, because it is in complete conjunction with his character thus far. Like when Ego tells him, I hated having to kill your mom, and he snaps out of that trance like, wait, what? No, don't take it the wrong. And he immediately just starts blowing him away without a second thought. Star-Lord is a character that acts out of impulse, and I will defend that because he doesn't feel like other characters. Black Panther was meh. That's a bold statement. Story-wise, it was. Visually, it was amazing. I'll be the first to say it. It's King Iron Man.
Wow.
It's the same.
Oh, the knives will come out for
No. It's just formulaic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Iron Man set, and we say it, Ant-Man is tiny Iron Man, and Doctor Strange is magic Iron Man. As much as I do enjoy Black Panther, and it's grown on me since, the storyline is very basic and very predictable. But visually, it's amazing, and I will defend that to death. And also the music. I love the music of Black Panther. And our friend Matt, he says it was a question mark. He said, Robert Downey Jr. sucks? Question mark. I think
Iron Man sucks.
Iron Man sucks.
Here's an unpopular opinion that I have that is true. Iron Man 3 is the best Iron Man movie. That's one I actually believe. Another one I didn't get to post. Edward Norton's the best Hulk.
I'll actually agree with that. I think again that Mark Ruffalo's Hulk suffers from the let's make him funnier.
See, I love Mark Ruffalo.
I love Mark Ruffalo too, and I liked. But if you watch Avengers, Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner versus when you get to now, totally different characters. Totally different, completely. And I think Edward Norton and the Incredible Hulk. I love the Incredible Hulk. I'll say it. It's one of my. I
haven't seen it in years.
It's really good, and I'm curious. Again, I'm curious to see.
On Iron Man 3.
And you can find me on Iron Man 3, but you like Iron Man 3 because of the director and the director choices.
I also love it because it's Tony Stark at his most not vilest. Tony Stark at his most
vulnerable.
Vulnerable. That's the V
word.
I
agree.
That's the V word I was looking for.
Tony Stark's a virgin? No, I agree with you on that point, and I know we did an episode about Iron Man and all that.
And his interplay with the kid is so good.
Oh, yeah, because he's still just such a savage to him. All right, so that's going to wrap us up for today. Don't forget, if you guys are looking for more content, you can find us on all social media. If you just type in the Misfit Faction, you'll find us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You'll find us on Facebook. Make sure you guys, if you guys are not in our Misfit Faction media group, make sure you send a request to that. I'll make sure you get in as soon as possible. So, yeah, we had a lot. This was a fun episode, despite
This was.
despite the fact that we cut our met on the show. But that's going to wrap us up for today. As always, I'm Paul.
And I'm Rob.
And we'll be back in a flash.
Smorgasbord.